So last time we talked, we met Joseph, and we heard all about the beginning of his story, how Joseph was his dad's favorite, but he told everybody, and that led to his brothers being rather upset with him and selling him into slavery. And if that wasn't bad enough, while Joseph was a slave in Egypt, he got accused of doing something that he didn't do, and he ended up in prison. This time, we're going to look at what happened during Joseph's prison sentence. Remember how when Joseph was sold as a slave, things actually went pretty well for him, at least at the beginning? Well, I want you to listen to this that explains how the beginning of Joseph's prison sentence went. While Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. He was kind to him. So the man running the prison was pleased with Joseph. He put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners. He made him responsible for everything done there. The man who ran the prison didn't pay attention to anything in Joseph's care. That's because the Lord was with Joseph. He gave Joseph success in everything he did. So it's clear that God was with Joseph. And even though it seemed like a bad situation, it seemed like God wanted Joseph there at this particular place for a certain time, for a certain reason. While Joseph was in prison, Pharaoh's baker and wine taster did something their master didn't like. So Pharaoh became angry with his two officials. He put them in the same prison where Joseph was kept. The captain put Joseph in charge of those men, so Joseph took care of them. Some time passed while they were in prison, and each of the two men had a dream. Joseph came to them the next morning, and he saw that they were sad. So he asked them, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but no one can tell us what they mean." Then Joseph said to them, "Only God knows what dreams mean. Tell me your dreams." So the chief wine taster told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream I saw a vine in front of me. There were 3 branches on the vine. As soon as it budded, it flowered, and bunches of ripe grapes grew on it. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. I took the grapes, I squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup. Then I put the cup in his hand." "Here's what your dream means," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will let you out of prison. He'll give you your job back, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand. That's what you used to do when you were the wine taster. But when everything is going well with you, remember me. Do me a favor, speak to Pharaoh about me. Get me out of this prison. I was taken away from the land of the Hebrews by force. Even here I haven't done anything to be put in prison for." The chief baker saw that Joseph had given a positive meaning to the wine taster's dream. So he said to Joseph, "I had a dream too. There were 3 baskets of bread on my head. All kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh were in the top basket. But the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." "Here's what your dream means," Joseph said. "The 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will cut your head off so that everyone can see." The 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday. He had a feast prepared for all his officials. He brought the chief wine taster and the chief baker out of prison. He did it in front of his officials. He gave the chief wine taster's job back to him. Once again, the wine taster put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But Pharaoh had the baker killed where everyone could see. Everything happened just as Joseph had told them when he explained their dreams. But the chief wine taster didn't remember Joseph. In fact, he forgot all about him. Remember how we said we thought that God wanted Joseph in this particular place for a certain reason? Well, it looks like this was that reason. God gave Joseph the meaning of those dreams, and those dreams came true. But when we look at it, it looks like Joseph didn't get anything out of this. Well, let's look and see what happens next. When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. In his dream, he was standing by the Nile River. 7 cows came up out of the river. They looked healthy and fat. They were eating some of the tall grass growing along the river. After them, 7 other cows came up out of the Nile. They looked ugly and skinny. They were standing beside the other cows on the riverbank. The ugly, skinny cows ate up the 7 cows that looked healthy and fat. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had a second dream. In that dream, 7 heads of grain were growing on one stem. They were healthy and good. After them, 7 other heads of grain came up. They were thin and dried up by the east wind. The heads of grain swallowed up the 7 healthy, full heads. Then Pharaoh woke up. It had been a dream. In the morning he was worried, so he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one could tell him what they meant. Then the chief wine taster spoke up. He said to Pharaoh, "Now I remember that I've done something wrong. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants. He put me and the chief baker in prison. We were in the house of the captain of the palace guard. Each of us had a dream the same night. Each dream had its own meaning. A young Hebrew servant was there with us. We told him our dreams, and he explained them to us. He told each of us the meaning of our dreams. Things turned out exactly as he said they would. I was given back my job. The other man was executed. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph. He was quickly brought out of the prison. Joseph shaved and changed his clothes. Then he came to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream. No one can tell me what it means, but I've heard that when you hear a dream, you can explain it. I can't do it, Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he wants. Then Pharaoh told Joseph what he had dreamed. Joseph said to Pharaoh, both of Pharaoh's dreams have the same meaning. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. The 7 thin, ugly cows that came up later are 7 years. So are the 7 worthless heads of grain dried up by the east wind. They are 7 years when there won't be enough food. 7 years with plenty of food are coming to the whole land of Egypt, but 7 years when there won't be enough food will follow them. Then everyone will forget all about the food Egypt had. Terrible hunger will destroy the land. There won't be anything left to remind people of the years when there was plenty of food in the land. That's how bad the hunger that follows will be. God gave the dream to Pharaoh in 2 forms. That's because the matter has been firmly decided by God, and it's because God will do it soon. So Pharaoh should look for a wise and understanding man. He should put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Pharaoh should appoint officials to be in charge of the land. They should take 1/5 of the harvest in Egypt during the 7 years when there's plenty of food. They should collect all the extra food of the good years that are coming. Pharaoh should give them authority to store up the grain. They should keep it in the cities for food. The grain should be stored for the country to use later. It will be needed during the 7 years when there isn't enough food in Egypt. Then the country won't be destroyed just because it doesn't have enough food. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all of his officials. So Pharaoh said to him, the Spirit of God is in this man. We can't find anyone else like him, can we? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, God has made all this known to you. No one is as wise and understanding as you are. You will be in charge of my palace. All my people must obey your orders. I will be greater than you only because I am the one who sits on the throne. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I'm putting you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took from his finger the ring he used to give his official stamp. He put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes made out of fine linen. He put a gold chain around Joseph's neck. He also had him ride in a chariot. Joseph was now next in command after Pharaoh. By doing all of these things, Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of the whole land of Egypt. So Joseph didn't get let out of prison when he thought that he would. Joseph didn't get let out of prison when he should have, because God had plans for him. God planned for Joseph to be there so that he could help out Pharaoh. And help out Pharaoh he did. And we're going to see next time that Joseph got lifted up to this really high, really important position for more than just helping out Egypt. Now I wanted to point out something else, something that Joseph knew. Now I'm sure Joseph was a great guy and all, but he pointed something out that's really important that we should keep in mind. It wasn't Joseph who could interpret the dreams. God was the one who could interpret the dreams. Joseph said so to Pharaoh. You see, God was working through Joseph to do his will. And God does the same thing even still today. God works through people all of the time to have his will be done here. But like Joseph, when we recognize that that's what happens, we should be giving the credit to God. All right, so next time we're going to look at the end of Joseph's story. We're going to see the dramatic ending, what everything has been leading towards. And we're going to tie off almost all of the loose threads that have been left hanging. And a little hint, we're going to learn way more about God.